All right. Good evening and good night. Welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. It is Thursday, March 17, 2016. My name is David, a.k.a. Kimba, a.k.a. Christian, alongside...
Bingy Soup.
Yeah, Soup. We back again?
Yes, sir.
I just want to say that this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 p.m. until. We do have a telephone number, 340-2019-005. You can also text us on that number as well. But most importantly, you have to go to our website, streaming live from the VI.com. Go to that website and click on the tab that says Watch Us Live, and you'll be able to see the show tonight because we do have special guests in the studio. Hit us up on email, streaming live from the VI@yahoo.com. We're in a high-tech, low-tech studio coming to you from an undisclosed location here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. No radio, no TV, internet only. So get your iPhone, your iPad, your tablet, your Mac or your Windows PC. Simply open up your browser, type in streaming live from the VI.com, and you'll be able to see the show tonight. All our recorded live shows are on YouTube and Ustream.tv. We got 2 Facebook pages. I want to give a super duper shout out to the CHS class of 1982. If you're here, there, and everywhere, hit us up. Let us know how you're doing. But most importantly, I want to give a shout out to all our past guests. Thanks for being on our show. VI Perspective, you can tweet with us there. We're moving straight forward and up, man. The show's mission is just to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. And Soup, you ready to bless that mic?
Yes, sir.
Bless that mic, man.
All praises be to the living eye. Jah Rastafari. The greatest secret in life is that reality is nothing more than illusion. The physical world does not exist outside of our own belief system and the filter of our own mind. We are, in fact, subparticles of Jah experiencing creation itself. But as subparticles of Jah, we have swayed over these creation. Everything you have experienced in life, every event, occurrence, object, and person is nothing more than a figment of your own thoughts, beliefs, and words. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. When you understand this, your entire world shifts and you come to realize the true meaning of life is thus like a lucid dream. We have total control.
Yes, I Soup. Thanks for blessing us with the It's Your Perspective poem.
You're welcome.
Been blessing us since April of 2014, which means that April of 2016 will be 2 years.
That's right.
Look out for the big celebration we're going to have here next month. But moving on, I'm sure you heard that voice. That is the voice of longtime friend of the show, author Gary James.
That's right. And Gary James will be celebrating his second year, his second anniversary here.
That's right, man.
At It's Your Perspective Talk Show, streaming live and direct from an undisclosed location.
That's it right
in
there,
the VI.
So Gary, how you doing, man?
Good. Everything is good. You know, I stay entertained and engaged with current politics, and this week was pretty engaging.
Yes.
You know, but I want to welcome everybody to Conversations with Gary James. And we're going to observe some political developments underway. In fact, many of you probably know that Trump has virtually hijacked the GOP nomination process and threatens riots if somehow the GOP establishment denies him the party nod. So it is really preparing to be something quite spectacular going forward.
Yes.
But it's not confined to Republicans. In fact, although Hillary will likely gain the Democratic nomination, the split between the liberal/progressive base of the party, represented by Sanders, and the centrist wing of the party, represented by Clinton, points to the ongoing crisis in the party. And that itself should be very interesting going forward. So no matter how you look at it, we are in for some very interesting and engaging entertainment. And I don't want to forget to mention the media and their infotainment news motif. And that will keep things going politically, as well as position them as going beyond the needs of a free and unbiased press. But anyway, it's all good, and we're going to just get more popcorn, so we could be prepared for however long this really goes. But I want to mention that Hillary is alienated from the liberal and progressive base of the party, and that alienation is organic, and it's based upon the distinction between the Clinton machine and the liberal progressive base of the party. The Clinton political machine, the much touted Clinton political machine, was established by way of the Democratic Leadership Conference, which was headed up by Bill Clinton during his governorship when he was positioning himself to run for president. And the DLC, Democratic Political or Democratic Leadership Conference, moved the party away from the traditional liberal and progressive base in the late 1980s. This is when there was thought that because of the Republican presidential victories and the way the Republican narrative positioned liberal and leftists as nefarious and communist and socialist oriented, the Democratic Leadership Conference developed as an idea to move the party from the traditional progressive ruling motif to a centrist political trajectory. And this was exemplified by President Clinton, and in fact, the DLC conference, that leadership was consequential to President Clinton's victory in 1992. So he gained the victory by way of the Democratic Leadership Conference, and that was impetus enough for him to move his administration to a centrist administration. And that is how the Clintons governed for the duration of his 2 terms. And President Obama's administration, in fact, also governed from the Clinton centrist model. And so you have 2 Democratic Party administrations, which amounts to like 16 years, but there were 8 years in between with Bush W. But essentially, the last 2 Democrat Party administrations were centrist oriented. And so the large base of the party, which is liberal and progressive from the time they took control of the conservative wing of the Democratic Party, they maintained control and the political narrative of the party until they were thoroughly assaulted by the Republican narrative. And now somehow they feel this is a classic opportunity for them to emerge from being being sidelined and politically eclipsed by the new centrist idea of how the Democratic Party should be run. So we are in for some serious dynamics within both parties. And it's clear that Bernie has a vociferous contingent that has no problem voicing their political position. But Bernie has eloquently articulated and represented the progressive agenda and successfully positioned Hillary to the right. And that is where she remains, and she's been trying to maneuver away from that general perception. And some say she's more Republican than Republican in terms of than Republicans are in terms of some political positions. But that's because Bernie Sanders has been very successful in positioning her to the right, which is an accurate characterization of how she has positioned herself by way of the Clinton, the much touted Clinton political machine. So there's an organic problem within the Democratic Party that's represented by the two candidates. But in addition to the centrist versus progressive internal power play, Hillary is on the short end of the young adult voters, and the political issues associated with Clinton's daughter has not enabled Chelsea to play any kind of mitigating role with her demographic. And so Chelsea has been sidelined to the extent that she doesn't directly interface with the her young contemporaries. But the fact is, there's a general alienation that exists there because, as you may recall, when Chelsea graduated college, she was able to land a gig that paid north of $500,000 a year. So that kind of bread is unheard of for new graduates. And it's clear that because of her base salary, she wouldn't have any problem dealing with the challenges of student loans and so forth. So young Clinton has been on economic and political trajectory that pretty much conforms to the centrist ideal that her parents have been the architects of and managers of. So going forward, there's going to be some serious things that will keep us engaged as the process continues. So, but obviously, both of the major political parties are preoccupied with their respective internal challenges. The political dynamic is entertaining, as we mentioned, and it's being played out live and in living color on traditional as well as digital media. You know, Trump is a great Twitter advocate and practitioner, and that is particularly interesting too. But in addition to the internal dynamic plaguing the Democratic and Republican parties, a persuasive argument can be made that the electoral political system as a whole is a major component of the crisis that both parties are experiencing. And the presidential nomination process in America in general, and both parties in particular, are in turmoil. And this escalating political turmoil threatens the popular political status quo and has, in fact, nullified the conventional political wisdom. Whole lot of new stuff is happening, and you can't bet on what you thought politics or party politics has been about for the past 40, 50 years. So it looks good. It looks quite interesting, and how it unfolds remains to be seen. But the Republican Party nomination process from the outset was viewed as a fiasco that demonstrated the political deterioration in the GOP that has escalated during the last 5+ decades. And the entry of Donald Trump into the nomination sweepstakes was met with great skepticism and controversy. But the conventional political wisdom was that Trump would implode or fade away before he could become a legal candidate. And most politicians in either party, as well as the media, operated on that basic political thesis. But the Trump campaign defied conventional wisdom and shocked most of the public by defying political gravity as well. All attempts to marginalize Trump's forward movement had little, if any, effect to date. Trump's ascendancy and his sustainability as the GOP frontrunner is, in fact, pardon me, it's a political phenomenon, no matter how you look at it, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. It's phenomenal. And the outrageous political spectacle that has occurred last Friday at the Trump rally, wherein scuffling and fights occurred, was absolutely unsettling to many and reminiscent of yours truly of earlier days in the 60s, like the Chicago Democratic Convention in 1968, which is a whole nother story. But there is a symmetry between the two, although there were some dynamics that are starkly different. Other GOP nomination candidates, in addition to the Republican establishment, have targeted Trump without success. And since the episode, the potential for violence, chaos, and mayhem going forward has been greatly increased due to the incendiary language, blatant bigotry, racism, and aggressively articulated by candidate Donald Trump personally, not his campaign, it's him. At this point, there's a full court press underway by GOP nomination candidates and the party establishment, elected and unelected, official and unofficial. All are trying to stop Trump from gaining the presidential nomination. The GOP establishment and other relevant party stakeholders and role players are reportedly planning a Republican Party nomination convention scenario designed to deny Trump the nomination. And it's not on the down low, it's high profile, coming from all quarters. The media are promoting the potential political showdown during the July GOP convention in Cleveland, Ohio. And Trump has made artful, strategic maneuvers and pulled out of the debate scheduled for Monday, the 22nd, by Fox News. The Trump tactic put the Republican Party and Fox News and candidates in a kerfuffle. So he's still driving the narrative and sowing much confusion, and the relevant parties are not bashful in how they are showing their absolute confusion. And so, as I said, it continues to be entertaining, and we don't know if it's going to stop anytime soon. Also, both Democratic Party nomination candidates, Clinton and Sanders, have joined the chorus to stop Trump's provocative and bigoted language. Both parties and media are calling for Trump to take the responsibility for escalating and to stop condoning and supporting negative behavior on the part of his supporters. And despite all hands being on deck, there's a growing acknowledgement that it may in fact be too late to stop the Trump political juggernaut. His seizure of the GOP nomination may in fact be a foregone conclusion. However, while the prospect of stopping the Trump political movement, as he calls it, from locking down the party nomination seems to be a remote possibility, party officials, candidates, among others, are preparing to make technical maneuvers to deny Trump the party nod by way of a brokered nomination convention. Without doubt, the GOP presidential nomination process is in free fall. But it remains to be seen how the process will shake out at the convention. There will be some shaking going on We know that. But whatever occurs during the Republican convention, and whoever is the nominee at the end of the day, it's a foregone conclusion that the party will be changed going forward. Currently, the GOP movers and shakers are planning the nominating convention to facilitate the nomination activities. This is an absolutely opaque internal process which will most likely include anti-Trump forces. And speculation abounds regarding the possible political scenarios coming out of the GOP convention. But the end results remain to be seen. However, what can be observed without equivocation is the fact that the relevant party players are making the rules that will ultimately design the nomination rules. So the whole thing is a nebulous or perhaps ephemeral process. And they're going to try to figure out how they're going to deal with this situation. And they may have to sacrifice, they may understand that they may have to sacrifice the election for the long term. Because even yours truly knows that in the not too distant future, the social conservative narrative that's still trying to become the Republican mainstream, that narrative will soon be irrelevant because the emerging demographic in America is what many call will be a majority minority. So shortly, white folk won't continue to be the majority, but the political point of view or sensibility, particularly in the GOP, doesn't seem to be capable of doing or understanding political math. So, excuse me, in our view, they have to blow. They have to blow it. And the best remedy, and they're good at this, is long-range planning. And so that is something that perhaps we may see emerge because some are giving up, are apparently giving up on the prospect that a useful outcome can emerge from whatever the end result situation is. And in our view, Trump is in a win-win situation. Whether he gains the nomination or not, his brand will be way out there based upon the kind of stuff that he does. So he can't lose. But some are saying that if Trump is the nominee, the Republican Party will surely crash. And if Trump is the eventual president, the GOP will crash and America may burn. So the future, well, is manifold, and there are many moving parts. And so we remain attuned to current events as they continue to unfold. But in our perspective, the political crisis underway in the Republican Party began in the 1960s, following the storied successes of the Civil Rights Movement. The enactment of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts of 1964 and 1965 respectively cast an ominous partisan political future that was embodied in President Lyndon Johnson's prediction that the Democratic Party would lose the South because of the civil rights bills that he signed. And he was prophetic, because that's what happened. After the Southern social conservative, so-called blue dog Democrats, lost control of the party, the liberal progressive wing of the party became or eclipsed the social conservative movement in the Democratic Party, and the social conservative movement infiltrated the Republican Party and began immediately to undertake a changing of the brand from an eclectic, conservative, and progressive, and in some cases radical Republican, to social conservative. So that began. They don't have no roots. There are no conservative roots in the Republican Party that the Tea Party and other conservatives tout broadly. There are no conservative roots in the Republican Party. The Republican Party was established to abolish slavery. And that was the deal. And that's why blacks were overwhelmingly involved in Republican Party politics until there was played out a position with the Great Compromise between the Democrats and Republicans, and the federal troops that enforced the civil rights of black folk after the Civil War, from Emancipation Proclamation from 1865 to 1876 was when the compromise went down. And the compromise was that, Republicans, your candidate could take the White House, but you call the federal troops back who are protecting the civil rights of these black guys who are less than human beings. And so that was the deal. And so that's what happened to black folk by way of the black codes, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynching and hanging and some horrific stuff, until the modern civil rights movement. After the girls were bombed, the church was bombed, and Medgar Evers was brutalized, and so much other stuff was a part of the terrorism that ran rampant in America. So that was our status quo until the advent of the modern civil rights movement, when we became emotionally involved with the Democratic Party because of what we learned about politics. And so we were one of the major components that enabled the Democratic Party to wrest control from the Blue Dog Democrats, the conservative Democrats. And so we got civil rights and voting rights and whatnot. But as we speak, most of that stuff has been torn away. I think maybe 16 or more states have abolished the voting rights. Voter suppression is rampant. Affirmative action, blacks cannot take advantage of because that's reverse discrimination. So gays, women, Asians, and other political minorities can take advantage of that. And black folk, black leadership became enamored with politics and political leadership as opposed to the social movement that it initially was. And so civil rights brought forth a political leadership that is a poor leadership at best. And we're going to be patronizing by saying a poor leadership at best. See, but they are corralled and enable the black community at large to be pawns in the larger political chess game while we engaged in playing checkers. And so this is the backdrop of what's going on. And it is entertaining, but more importantly, it's serious on one level and pathetic on another level, because the future, a positive future, is in our hands, but we're not taking full advantage of that. And in the process, the issue of race and race-based bigotry migrated from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Same deal, same crisscross, but it's a little bit more sophisticated. From then to now, racism was associated with the social conservative movement, found a home in the GOP. And the party establishment caved in or turned a blind eye to racism associated with the new GOP social conservative wing of the party of Lincoln. The optics are wrong. Something no jive there. But apparently we like it like that. While the new social conservative wing of the GOP made inroads into the party since the 1960s, the African American base of the party were absolutely taken for granted, because most of us were Republican. You know, like Martin Luther King and his father, they were both Republican. Ralph Abernathy, he remained Republican. Martin flipped when Johnson made the civil rights move, so he was a Democrat. But until his dying day, his Daddy King and Martin's main man, Ralph David Abernathy, were Republican. And Abernathy was ostracized by the black leadership who took the Democratic narrative hook, line, and sinker. And that's a whole other story, because I would observe that the civil rights leadership orthodoxy, by way of the NAACP, the storied organization that goes back to W.E.B. Du Bois, which is a whole nother scenario. But within the dispensation, the contemporary dispensation that I'm referring to and observing, the NAACP became, had a symbiotic relationship with the Democratic Party. And that's the story. That's the story as it continues. And so there's been a friend-enemy juxtaposition that keeps the black community at large captive, you know, in a neo-slavery, while there is a political class that treats the black community at large as subjects and sell out certain things. You know, in the States is one thing, in the VI is something else. But it seems to be, from my observation, the same crisscross. And we seem to be locked into a locked out situation. And so I don't know if we could expect an amelioration of our predicament from anyone other than first person singular, we. Because the other guys, the political class and super class, they're good to go. And so, you know, we'll just have to take the brunt of that. But according to the presidential nomination hopefuls, both, well, throughout history, whether black or white, and in both Democrat and Republican Party, the presidential candidates were required to demonstrate a neutrality at best relative to the race issue. And this is maintained. It's currently the way things are. Accordingly, people such as Reverend Jesse Jackson and Sister Soldier, for just some convenient examples, were recipients of political blows from presidential candidates, including President Bill Clinton, who wouldn't hesitate to play the race card, although he's touted by many as being the first black president. Deep stuff. But so thus the Republicans as well as the Democratic presidential candidates were admonished and are admonished to put and keep black folk in their place. And that move is like a rite of political passage if you're going to play on that level, on that high level. And at the end of the day, apart from a few individual exceptions, the black community at large are ignored by Republicans and taken for granted by Democrats, except for the privileged few. During this process of being ignored on one hand and taken for granted on the other, the legislative and statutory advances of the civil rights period were rolled back or deconstructed. This is what we are experiencing And as a practical matter, 16 states have rolled back voting rights, and voter suppression tactics and new techniques are minimizing other civil rights achievement. But this is possible because we are not playing leverage politics. We are playing peanut gallery politics. We like to be pawns, and we prefer the anointed or appointed few to rule us. Being subjects is an easier scenario. Don't have to be responsible for too much. The political trickery of the last 5 decades has blunted the potential of the black voter in particular. But the black community in general has a potential to change this situation in a very dynamic and consequential way. And by the nature of the way politics is conducted in the black community at large, this has in fact helped to marginalize our potential outcomes, and it still does. In summary, the race issue and bigotry continues to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room, yet it is ignored and kept in its place across party lines, among friends, so-called, and so-called political enemies. Same narrative, different level of sophistication, different level of application, but the bottom line is the same end result. Interestingly enough, it's our observation that African American elected officials, as well as civil rights leadership orthodoxy, they virtually never use the term black community. The African American leadership, as a rule, uses the term people of color, or minority community, or other minorities, and they are loath to single out the black community at the risk of being accused of playing the race card. This is our elected leadership. Well, I know how it is in New York. I mean, in the States, I can't speak for how it is here in the VI. I'm learning. I'm a pretty quick study, however. The Republican Party right wing, with the acquiescence of party establishment, took the lead on disguising the race issues in sophisticated and political buzzwords. The Neo-Democrat Party pulled up the rear and modulated the race issue on one hand, and on the other hand, they remained silent. In this political environment of race denial and political sound bites, media and 140-character Twitter universe, the Trump political phenomena was born. At this point, Trump has grown into a political juggernaut. And he silently, or in some cases not so silently, mirrors or articulates the political sensibility of the majority white folk. Has nothing to do with political affiliation. Zip. Now the silent GOP establishment realizes that the party of Lincoln has become a runaway train vis-a-vis Donald Trump. So the ultimate outcome of the GOP is not foreseeable. The billionaire real estate tycoon obviously has an insurmountable lead, and belated efforts to deny Trump the nomination threatens to take down the party in the process, to say the least. Needless to say, I bought more popcorn. I got a whole lot of popcorn. This year's presidential election is the most contentious and controversial within both political parties that I've seen in my lifetime. And I can assure you I'm an old dude. And it may be, in fact, among the most politically divisive presidential elections in history. It all remains to be seen. I make my observations based upon my experience as an expert witness in electoral politics in general and presidential politics in particular. Beginning in 1964 to the present, I've engaged in electoral politics in both political parties, from the grassroots to the highest level. Whatever the result comes from the GOP convention, whether Trump is the nominee or someone else, the Republican Party will most likely lose the election. I'm just going out there and making that prediction. And it will require radical political surgery in order to be competitive in presidential elections going forward. Without question, the high entertainment value of this year's GOP presidential election will continue. But apart from the comedic component, the GOP political situation is too serious for America and the world to continue in this humorous political motif. How am I doing on time, bro?
I don't know, 9:07 p.m. A few more minutes.
Yeah, okay, I got a few minutes. Let me just briefly reference Soup's question to me during our last conversation about delegates. And I didn't mention last time, although I don't recall everything I said, but I know I didn't mention the fact that I was a delegate in Harlem in 1988 for Jack Kemp. And just to give a brief overview of the GOP situation in Harlem. and my role as a delegate for Kemp. Number one, to the surprise of some, the GOP is not a political monolith, particularly as I know it in New York. In New York, there is a national party, there is a state party, and there is a local party. And each of them are sovereign. But the national party and the state party have a problem with how the local party is run. And there are a number of moving parts, to that dichotomy between the upstate and downstate political division in the GOP. One of the moving parts have to do with ethnicity. The upstate party is run by Italians and Irish. The downstate party, particularly in Manhattan, Harlem, and Brooklyn, are run by Jewish folk. And there is a serious dichotomy there. And because of that dichotomy, it was preferred that I be appointed as a delegate to Jack Kemp, as opposed to participating in the local election. And this is why. My reputation precedes me on all of those levels. And at the local level, the local party had a problem with the politics of Gary James, because the local party had a major numerical disadvantage with the local Democratic Party in New York City, like a 7-to-1 disadvantage. Therefore, the Republican Party county leadership, there's 5 counties, each county has its own independent leader. The Republican Party county leadership, in order to maintain its position at the state legislature and Senate and Assembly, they made strange bedfellow deals with Democrats. And for example, as I was talking with Brother Kimber on the way down, therefore, Congressman Charles Rangel, for example, was first elected in 1970, and during that election in 1970 against the great Adam Clayton Powell, Rangel got the nomination and endorsement of the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party. And from 1970 until 2000, 30 years, the Republican Party never ran a candidate against Rangel. In fact, until that point, for 30 years, Charlie ran as a Republican. He ran on the Republican Party line as well as the Democratic Party line. And so we in my group were about building a local party. But the local party wasn't about building a local party. It was about maintaining this strange bedfellow deal with the Republican Party, just using black Republicans for cameos, and most black Republicans went for that. They just dug the skin in and grinning. But the district leaderships were compromised to the Democratic Party. Therefore, effectively, as we speak, there are no district leader, there is no evidence that there is a black Republican district leadership in Harlem or in Brooklyn. Now, I know this particularly because the state, well, from the feds. In 1984, I was recruited from the White House. I have documentation for my group, Voters Anonymous, which I chaired, to be a part of the statewide initiative for the re-election of Reagan in 84. And my organization was bipartisan because we were about building leverage. And so we got a super shot with his campaign. But I'm fighting to a large extent my own folk because they were given the largesse from the Democratic machinery. And in fact, in 1986, two things. 1986, I was tapped as the statewide gubernatorial coordinator in the black community. So I ran the so-called Black Desk. And during one conversation in the future, we're going to talk about that because during that campaign, that gubernatorial campaign against Mario Cuomo, it ended up where our candidate, Justice, he was executive of Westchester County at the time, he wound up with a Supreme Court judgeship, and Cuomo, during that political campaign, made deals with upstate Republicans to build jails up there. See? So during the Cuomo administration, there was a rash of prison constructions in upstate New York. And the trick is, Cuomo used the bread from HUD. And that became a big issue, which I talked about in I think it was my first book. But my point is, that is how the dichotomy between the state and the local party ran. And I was appointed because they wanted my skills and participation, and they knew that if it was subject to a local election, they knew what would happen. That's for sure. And in fact, in 1986, I got a call from the county chairman, the Republican Party county chairman in New York County, Manhattan County. I got a call from his administrative assistant, executive assistant, and I was offered a gig in Charlie's office. Now I refused it, obviously, because I was building my company. I had just opened my office in Harlem, my consulting and printing company in Harlem. And I was affronted by that, because I'm saying to myself now, wait a second, here I am trying to build the local party, and here the county chairman is going to call me and tell me about a gig I can get in Charlie's office. Imagine that. And I mentioned that to one of my political colleagues, and he said, damn man, you should have took that. I said, why would I take that? I'm trying to build something down here. He said, because they came to you with that. They didn't go to none of their district leaders. They didn't go to Leroy or Joe. But he missed my point. But that's the point. So the delegation process is about appointments, or it could be about elections, and it's really up to the players in the game. But initially, Kemp wanted to be a serious candidate, and that's why I was elected. I mean, that's why I was appointed to the position. And when I was with the gubernatorial candidate, the campaign floundered because deals were made to build the prisons and to give the county executive a Supreme Court judgeship. And I'm looking at this thing, and interestingly enough, so after that, they called me to the state, the state chairman called me to write a proposal entitled the Black Republican Task Force, because they were telling me that they wanted to use my expertise to build a credible presence, you know. But the fact is, there were some who did want to do that seriously, and there were others who were detractors to that. And I didn't really want to play that game, you know. And so for whatever it's worth, I never sought political office. I never ran for political office. I was always a technician in terms of being a political organizer. So I'm going to leave it there, brother, because there's no point in taking it any further. We got another show to do in a couple weeks.
That's right.
So,
Gary, you'll be back.
till then.
He'll be back. Gary James will be back April 7th.
April 7th, okay.
April 7th and April 21st.
There we go. There we go.
April
the first
7th.
and second Thursday of each month.
First and third.
Excuse me. I said second?
Yes, first and
Yeah,
third.
I blew that one. First and third. 1 and 3.
April-
1 equals 3. Now that's my thing. I should know that. You see, I don't know how that deuce came in there. But anyway, we got it straight.
Yeah.
The 7th and the what, 21st?
21st. First and third Thursday. This is April 7th and April 21st.
Good.
All right. So tonight, our guest is author Gary James here, down here in the Virgin Islands. His website is Voters Anonymous.
VotersAnonymous.com. And it speaks for itself.
That's
so you can go there.
Okay.
And see where we're coming from.
Okay. All right. So, Soup, any final words, Soup?
Gary, always a pleasure.
Thank you, my brother. I stay inspired with you guys. You guys are good. That's what I was telling Kimber on the way over. You guys are trying to build something, man.
Yes, sir.
We're
You
trying
ain't
to
waiting for no action.
We're doing
And
it.
what you're building is cutting edge.
We're doing it, you know.
You got me. You got me, bro.
Yes,
Okay?
Yes, sir, for sure. Again, thank you, and keep on doing the good work that you do.
Yeah.
Rastafari.
And thanks for that reference on that other pressing matter.
Yes, sir, for
Yeah,
sure.
Good.
For
Good.
sure. Rastafari lives. One perfect
Aye.
love.
Yeah, and we like to say one perfect love is our prayers and his blessings. And when you put it all together, you get one perfect love. So we're out. It's about 9:22 p.m. I just want to say that this is the Ethiopia Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Our website is streaming live from the VI.com. Hit us up on Facebook. Big shout out to CHS Class of 1982. We're moving straight forward and up. The show's mission is just to inform, entertain, and empower everyone. So on that note, we're out. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Yes, baby.